Hi, Kings fans, and welcome back to the Frozen Crown. In this video, we're going to be looking at how we did in Week 3 of the young NHL season. A week where we saw some tests here against a couple of good teams, both of which should be in the playoffs in Toronto and Tampa Bay, but also a good team in Winnipeg who surprised me. So we're going to look at how the Kings did in all three of those games and look at just a summary of the week in total. And then we'll also look at our key performers in our doghouse as we do every week and look ahead towards week number 4. So to start things off, we're going to look at how we did against the Tampa Bay Lightning and what I thought was a very solid overall game all around from all of our lines, offensively and defensively. One thing that started right off the bat for me is that I saw that the fourth line got the starting faceoff, and they really kind of took over for the third line. So minutes-wise, they got more minutes than that third line did with Byfield. But, it's not undeserved. They have done a good job bringing energy all season long, specifically guys like Lemieux and Lizotte. They've been really the two mainstays there. But I think that they deserve these minutes, and I was glad to see them perform well here. They also, as I kind of alluded to, they played their best defense all season. Specifically, defense getting engaged, really activating, whether it be off the rush, jumping in. We saw Brandt Clarke get an assist here on a really nice play where he jumped in and joined the rush. And we also saw a lot of guys stand up on the blue line too. So not allowing Tampa Bay's skilled forwards to build up speed through the neutral zone and enter our zone with speed where they're going to be able to put a move on. Kind of having good neutral zone management to where they're stepping up and holding that blue line, throwing a check to stop their momentum and their speed coming into our zone. Another thing I saw done well here was that other positions were covering well for each other. So when I mentioned guys like Brandt Clarke stepping up into the rush, I noticed there was someone staying back for him. And then, I think I saw Trevor Moore here do a good job staying back for his defenseman, even behind the net to create a breakout opportunity. But this is just showing that the guys are kind of learning each other's tendencies, and knowing, okay, Brandt Clarke's the kind of guy who likes to jump up, I'm going to stay back. Or this person's in trouble, let me just be here to help them out. And you kind of just get to know, what's most likely going to happen in a situation because you've played with the player more often. But I think this was a very good confidence booster. Obviously, Tampa Bay's been in the Cup like the past 3 years here, so seeing them lose to the Kings here was a bit, I guess, shocking. They've had a rough start to their season. Maybe they're starting to decline, losing players, but it's still for the Kings to look at this game and say that, we beat them is still a great thing for our confidence. Moving on to the only loss of the season or of the week here, we lost against Winnipeg 6-4. It was 5-4, and then Winnipeg scored an empty net at the end. So really a closer game than it looks, but still very high scoring. Another thing I want to point out again is that our bottom six, I think, is playing well. We saw Jarrett Anderson-Dolan get into the lineup here. I think he did a good job stepping in for Byfield at that third line center position. And I think that the fourth line is getting involved in scoring and just basically doing what you need out of a fourth line. Letting the other guys rest, but not being a liability for your team. And maybe if you chip in with a few goals here and there, that's great. One thing stuck out to me too, our early goals hurting us. So at this point, when we got scored on here, that was our fourth goal against in only 9 games of the season, where the enemy scored a goal on the first shot of the game against us. So that definitely needs to clean up before we start getting buried too early in these games. But early goals are still hurting us. We saw that with the Scheifele breakaway goal right off the bat. Another thing that is really, still kind of a theme for the season is goaltending, and Quick is still struggling to find consistency here. So he'll have one good game, one bad game, kind of be all over the place. We don't know whether we're going to have, the good Quick or the bad Quick in net. So I don't think he's looked awful in the games where he's been, struggling, but, we need to see either him or Peterson take that lead and be the guy, and he's not going to do it with performances of one good, one bad all throughout the season. Then we also saw Kevin Fiala's minutes drop here. I think this was the first time where we really saw him get, less minutes than some other guys like Moore and Arvidsson. But I think we're starting to see Todd McClellan lose some patience for the first line struggling to have some chemistry. I really think out of all the lines, they've had the least amount of chemistry. And it's kind of a preview for the next game where Kevin Fiala lost his spot at the first line, which we'll talk about next. So the next game against Toronto, we won 4-2. And Gabe Velardi was promoted, which means that Kevin Fiala is the guy who got demoted. For me, looking at this, you guys have heard me talk about how Gabe Velardi's been the best king. To me, it's about time. I think that he really has shown on both sides of the puck, both sides of the ice, that he can be a great player, making great defensive plays, obviously leading the Kings in scoring. So no complaints from me about him getting promoted. It's a shame to see Kevin Fiala get demoted because he has still been involved in the offense and making good plays. But I think with Kopitar and Kempe playing with each other before, it was only really the reasonable choice there. Next, we saw Peterson make some really great saves early. I can think of two early on. One being a breakaway by Mitch Marner right off the bat in the first period, like 5 minutes in. We'll go into this. We'll look at this in our video review this week. But I think he looked great early, and we need that with, as I mentioned, early goals hurting us. And then watching the third line play this game, the game, I think it was Kupari centering Grundstrom and Fiala this game, and I thought they played well. Those two, I think Kupari and Grundstrom have played together a little bit in the past, but pretty much a brand new line. And for them to get a couple goals out there, Fiala really is the one who's driving play here. But it could be that the third line better suits Fiala, where he can be the guy, the number one guy. He doesn't have to play where he has to worry about feeding other people and has to worry about other guys, getting his minutes or playing against some of the better competition out there. He's really seen as the guy on the third line, and it might suit him. We saw it when he plays for Minnesota. When he played for Minnesota, he took the second line and really succeeded there. Had his best career year on the second line with a rookie as his center. So that was interesting to see. We'll see if this line sticks with Kupari and Grundstrom and Fiala. I imagine we'll see it against St. Louis on Monday. But it's something to look at. We'll certainly be looking at Fiala here as, their line's definitely going to get less ice time than first. The next is that I saw Sean Walker look really good here. I think he did a good job mostly with his puck movement. Nothing, no glaring holes defensively to me, but puck movement wise, he really had a good job, like breaking out of a really like a long stretch pass that'll hit somebody for a breakaway or for an odd man chance. That's what I've seen in the past out of him, and I'm glad to see him kind of stepping back into that puck moving defenseman role. And it makes the decision harder for the Kings, who have to worry about whether Brandt Clarke will stay up in the NHL this year. But another thing I saw is that the Kings wanted it more here. And this may be more of a criticism of Toronto, but they did not really look too interested come the third period. The Kings were really buzzing, always still had energy, and just seemed to really be the team that wanted to win more. So I was happy to see that, and that's a big part of burying a team, is wanting it throughout all 60 minutes of the game. And I was happy to see. I think that's a big improvement we've seen over this past week, is more 60-minute games, not great 20 minutes here, poor 20 minutes there. There definitely were some times where we had bad periods this week, but more consistency in general across these games. Now to summarize, I think we passed the test this game this week. So we had a test against two really high-scoring teams, and we held them to 2 goals. And then, we really almost won against Winnipeg. But I think that you can look at this week and say these are the kind of matchups that are going to be maybe teams will play against in the playoffs. So, we'll see how the Kings continue to do against some of the best competition in the league. But for this week, I think they passed the test. I think the biggest thing we had to look forward to, we looked at last week, was our defense and our goaltending, and we're still number 2 in the league in goals against. But I did see a significant improvement for both our goaltending and defense in this week, and I'd like to see more of that, and maybe start to see who's emerging as our number 1 goaltender throughout this season too. And I think that Todd McClellan needs to be commended here for his successful line changes that he's made. So we saw him kind of give Fiala a bit of a leash here, specifically with penalties. And, the first line was doing okay scoring, but it wasn't, every game consistently providing offense. But we saw that Velardi was doing great. And so he moved up the lines a little bit, put Velardi up to the first line. He's mixed and matched some things on the bottom 6 too, which I think have been working. So I do think he's been doing a good job of that. And he's really had to make the biggest line change this season with Fiala going down and Velardi coming up, and he went ahead and pulled the trigger on that. we'll see if that sticks. But I got to give him credit for that because I think he's recognizing that his team is maybe needing to make some tweaks, but nothing too big. Lastly, I thought the power play did do better this past week. Obviously, that 28% is very good, but we still are giving up a lot of shorthanded chances that are going to be killing our momentum if we continue to allow those goals to come in. Right now, we're number one in the league with shorthanded goals against. One of those being an empty net, but still, if we give the other team more chances on the power play than we're creating ourselves, that's going to be a huge momentum and emotional drag for us. So power play did get better. I want to see us tighten up in the D end and really just, if the puck's coming the other way against us, let's completely focus on the defensive side, then we'll worry about getting the puck back instead of trying to pinch and really create and really risk all this defense for offense. Let's just continue to play defensively the right way, and we'll get our chances on the power play when we've earned them. All right, so for key performers this week, to no surprise, again, it is Gabe Velardi at number one. Again, both sides of the play, he's succeeding here. He's doing a good job defensively. He creates a lot of turnovers with his forecheck. He does a great job on the walls, too. That's something that I think is an underrated part of his game. He's slippery on the walls. I mean, guys try to go in and check him and pin him, and he fakes one way, goes the other, or he'll just be too fast and swerve around a guy. That's a big part of how he creates offense. And we might see him creating more offense with guys like Kopitar, who are also good wall players in the future. But again, 3 goals, 1 assist. One thing of note is that every player on this key performers list has had points in all 3 games. So good to see consistency out of these guys. But again, Velardi, still the best player on the Kings team right now. Great to see him get promoted. Next with Philippe Deneau. A goal and 2 assists, so not as many points as these other guys and not nearly as many shots, but from an offensive and a defensive perspective, he's really succeeding here too. I think that as a defensive first center, he kind of has to make sure he takes care of his own end first, and then that responsibility will create opportunities the other way. We saw this with him making a great interception against Toronto. He intercepted the puck in the neutral zone, took it back the other way, and ended up scoring with He assisted on the goal by Arvidsson, but play the right way in your defensive end. It'll create chances your other way. And I think that really he is one of the most underrated players on the Kings team. But specifically, I wanted to focus on the faceoff percentage for him because when he played against Tampa Bay, he had a faceoff percentage of 80%. Against Winnipeg, it was 82%, and then it went down to 60% with Toronto. But if you have a 60% win percentage, that's definitely going to be one of the top in the league. So great faceoff week from Deneau. Just great overall two-way game out of Deneau this week. And then Kevin Fiala, I was really happy to see him. When he got demoted, he didn't really seem to let it bother him. He's still in that first line power play, but losing your first line spot, I could see how someone might get upset and not want to maybe give as much effort or really, be the guy he's being paid to be. But I tell you what, he looked great on that third line, and it might suit him better. But really, still getting in on the assists a lot, and then he created a great chance for himself. Scoring a goal against Toronto, just taking the puck from a guy, just picking his pocket and going the other way. It was great to see. So these are our key performers, and we had really a good week. So I was only able to put one guy in the doghouse, and one guy only had one game too, and that is Quinton Byfield. So he only played against Tampa Bay, the very first game. He had 1 shot in that game. One thing that really drove me nuts was just watch him have a missed breakaway. I think it was maybe Deneau who gave him a pass, or maybe more, who gave him a nice pass coming into the zone. He was one-on-one with the goalie. He had a little bit of back pressure from Hedman behind him, but certainly a brilliant chance, and he completely missed it and didn't even really get a good scoring chance off at all. And then in the third period, he also took a really bad penalty on the offensive zone, dropping the puck. The faceoff, the puck's down in the middle, and he used his hand to play the puck, which is an instant penalty. The ref's right there looking down at it. He's going to see it every time. So basically gave Tampa Bay a chance to get back into the game. We did a good job killing that off, but we can't allow stupid penalties like that, as well as missed breakaways opportunities from our our third line center, a guy who's supposed to be kind of making strides this year to show that he should be in the league. So I think that Ontario Reign is maybe calling Byfield here. We've got Anderson Dolan and Kupari who have already stepped in and taken over that third center role. And I think McClellan is starting to just kind of experiment with who might be the guy to come in when Byfield comes out. So I've heard people say that he had an illness and that he might be just missing time because of that. That's possible, but I don't think that. I think it's totally possible that he could have just been getting benched too. So you don't ever want to say that you benched your number 2 overall pick and stuff, but fact of the matter is he hasn't earned his ice time, and I want to see him go back down to the AHL. I've been saying this from the beginning of the season. I think he still needs to develop, but he's the only guy I could really justify putting in my doghouse this season or this week. Because the other guys, I think, all had their moments where they did well, and I never really saw anything from anybody that really stuck out to me that they deserved to be in the doghouse other than Quentin Byfield. So looking ahead to Week 4, we start things off right away on Monday night against St. Louis in a back-to-back against St. Louis and Dallas. These are both teams who should be making some noise in the West, so I'll be interested to see how they do here. Again, don't want to see things go into overtime against these teams. Then we'll play against Chicago and we'll play against Florida. So with St. Louis, Dallas, and Chicago, or St. Louis, Dallas, and Florida, I think those are all going to be playoff teams who should be good tests for the Kings. But Chicago, I'd like to see us beat up on them and really just bury a team that's certainly not as good as we are. I think the main thing we have to look forward to as a Kings fans here is Brandt Clark. So he's already played 8 games. Once he hits 10, that's going to be his decision time of when we're going to basically, if he hits 10, he's going to be starting his first year of his entry-level contract, and he's not going down to juniors. But if he stays at 9, then the Kings can still have some opportunities to get a guy like Sean Walker in and kind of see what we have there. So I think that Brandt Clark will probably end up playing 10 games and stay in the NHL this year. I don't see him being too different from a guy like Sean Walker. I think they can both provide offense, but not amazing defense. If it was me, I would send him down just because I haven't seen enough out of him to really justify him staying up. And I think Sean Walker has maybe a higher ceiling. But from a development standpoint, how much more can he really develop in juniors? I can see why they have this mindset of maybe keeping him. So we'll see how that goes. That's certainly the biggest thing to keep an eye out for. But building off of one strong week into another strong week is also something I'm going to look forward to too. So we really had a good week here playing against some good teams and beating them. I'd like to see us continue that with Week 4 and have a good strong winning record here coming out of October and getting into November. So thank you guys all for watching. As another week review is in the books. I appreciate you guys all liking and subscribing and promoting this content. So thank you guys all for tuning in. We'll see you in the next week's review.